Hello, welcome to No Extra Words, One Person Search for Story. This is Special Secret Missing Episode 121. I realized a while back that I mislabeled an episode and skipped 121. So I've been looking for a place to slot in the how did I miss this episode? And this one is the 5 magical things your library does. This may come off as an ad for libraries. I'm guessing if you're listening to the show, you are a lover of literature and probably libraries as well. So this may be redundant to you. I may do a little choir preaching today. But I'm always amazed by the things that people don't know about the workings of libraries. So I thought, even if this doesn't work for you, even if this is stuff you already know, maybe it's something that you can share with someone who might need this info in their life. Or maybe we'll just do tales from the reference desk. Who knows? I am going to do a real episode coming up about summer reading, but I wanted to get this one in first. So these are 5 magic things your library does. And a lot of them are actually based on kind of the core things libraries do. Like, libraries do a lot of cool and neat, innovative, modern things. There's a lot of technology in libraries now. There's a lot of maker spaces and all that kind of good stuff. But I think the things that we don't realize are the things that are kind of based in traditional libraries, but maybe with a modern twist. And the first one, I am constantly amazed at how many people don't know this. Your library will loan you digital books. So if you need something to read on your Kindle or iPad, or you need something to listen to on your smartphone, your library loans. Most libraries in today's world loan ebooks and audio ebooks. It's fantastically easy to get them. You get a library card. Oftentimes you can get a library card without setting foot in the building. And you go online and you place requests through your library's catalog or through the app, usually the Overdrive or Libby or whatever service your library is using to provide its digital books has an app. And you can just put your request in right there, and they will notify you when your book is available, and you get it for the window of time that your checkout is, and you get to listen to it or read it. It is phenomenally easy. You don't have to drive across town to pick up the books anymore. They will come right to your device. So I think a lot of people don't know that, and it's magical. Libby and Overdrive are 2 that you're going to look for at your library. They're run by the same company. They're just kind of different looking apps. And there are some other smaller ones as well. But check it out. It's pretty cool. It's the only way that I get audiobooks now. So that's number 1. The number 2 thing that your library does, and this service just amazes me because I think it's just the coolest thing, and I think I'm a nerd, but I totally nerd out about this. There's this service called Interlibrary Loan. So if you think about how many books are held in the libraries around the country and around the world, and the truth of the matter is you have access to most of those things because your library can borrow just about anything that you want for you. Because there's a lot of things your library doesn't have for whatever reason. A lot of things are collected more locally. Sometimes older things go out of print and can't be reordered when they get damaged or thrown away. Or there's just a lot of reasons why your library doesn't have a certain book, but they can get it for you. And it's this amazing service. It goes back to kind of to the beginning of public libraries in America. There's been this resource sharing thing. So there's kind of 2 things that happen. There's very local resource sharing where a lot of libraries are connected by what they would call a union catalog. So you might be familiar with this. If you put a hold on a book at your library, it might get sent in for you from another branch or another library your library is connected to. And that's awesome. But I'm talking about you can order library books from other states, from universities, from just anywhere. And it's just kind of amazing. They show up at your library for you and you check them out just like a book. It's kind of like you have a card to anything, anywhere. So I'll give you an example. Right now I'm reading a book called Haiku, A Poet's Guide by Lee Gerga. And this is by the Modern Haiku Press. So this is a small press book. This is a very, very niche topic. And so most libraries don't have this book, but a few libraries do. And so I put in a request to my library to borrow it for me, and they did, and they sent it to me. It came from a community college in California, which I know because it has the stamps on it, the the ownership markers from that library, and I get to just check it out from my library and read it and return it, and the library takes care of all the shipping and all the everything. Sometimes they'll charge you a little bit just to cover the cost of shipping, but there's actually an incentive to libraries to not charge for borrowing, because if they don't charge for borrowing, other libraries don't charge them. So it's kind of an amazing service. It used to be my job when I worked an evening reference shift at one of my libraries to pull the books, because we had a courier service that would do interlibrary loans for kind of the local 3-state region around us, and they came Thursday mornings. So on Wednesday nights, I would pull the requests off the software that we use, and it was always really cool to see what people were asking for and what was going out. Now, the cool thing about this service is you, as the person who wants to use it, you don't have to know anything about which library has the book or whether it's checked in, or you don't have to know any of that. You just give the information about the book to your librarian, and they will take care of the ordering of it for you, and they'll decide which library is the best to ask for it from and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to take you behind the scenes to the stuff you don't have to know. So I looked it up. There's a website called WorldCat, which is run by OCLC. I don't know what OCLC stands for these days. OCLC is one of the oldest library resource sharing organizations in North America. And worldcat.org is a public website, and it has the contents of library catalogs from all over on it. So if you want to see which library owns a book, it's not always the most up-to-date information in the world, but this is kind of the best way to do it without having to go look at every library in the world, because it will list which libraries hold this book. And I looked this one up, and it's got 31 holdings listed in OCLC. Only 8 of them are public libraries, and none of the libraries, either public or university, are in my state. Because this is a niche topic. In order to want to hold this book, you really have to be serving a clientele that's learning about this. So, university and college libraries where they have MFA and creative writing programs, those would be the kind of libraries that would stock this book. And when I titled this episode 5 Magical Things Your Library Does, I'm mostly talking about public libraries, but the really nice thing about Interlibrary Loan is it connects you to university libraries, because university libraries have the budgets and the ability to collect a lot of more expensive materials, more niche materials that your public library just doesn't have, because they're serving a different clientele. But usually you can't just use a university library if you're not a student or a staff member. Oftentimes there's a fee for getting an account there or whatever. But because my library participates in Interlibrary Loan, I can put the request through my library, and they will send university library materials to me for me to use. So if you want to get yourself an education without necessarily paying for university tuition, you at least have access to those materials and those texts, which I think is really cool. Now, you might have to wait a little bit. It's not an overnight service. Smaller libraries tend to be faster about the way that they get the materials, because you're usually talking to the person who's going to do the ordering. Bigger library systems sort of have departments and things go through levels. So it probably will take a few weeks to a few months to get your books. And we don't live in a culture where we're in the habit of waiting for things. But if there's some stuff that's been simmering in the back of your mind about books you want to read but don't want to spend the money on, or that might be a little older or whatever, think about Interlibrary Loan Service. It is really cool. And I always love to kind of peek under and see the stickers and see like which library has sent this. I've gotten books from all over the country, and people send books from all over the world. I've seen Interlibrary Loan requests come through from NASA and all kinds of things. They also can get journal articles. So again, if you're doing research, and a lot of journal articles are available now through your library's research links. They're paying for like ProQuest and things like that would deliver journal articles to you with a library card, but they can get copies of like really obscure things. You'd have to put in a request. It's kind of a crazy system in our library loan. It's nerdy, so I do understand why we don't talk about it more, and it's expensive, so I do understand why we don't push it more. But honestly, like seriously, if you want to be a library mega user, you got to get your fingers into that pie. So that's number 2. Number 3 sounds really obvious, but it isn't. Libraries are public spaces. There was a lot of conversation a few months back about people getting kicked out of Starbucks, and, the conversation about how much right does a privately owned business like a restaurant have to decide how long you can stay and who gets to use the bathroom, and how do they make those determinations. And it's a tricky conversation, and it's embedded in race and class and privilege and lots of other things. But the truth of the matter is, even though they oftentimes do let you to an extent, a privately owned business doesn't have to let you hang out there all day. And they can make you buy things for the privilege of hanging out there all day. And we don't have a lot of spaces in this culture where people, any person of any income level, of any language, of anything, can just come sit and hang out. And libraries do that for us. You don't have to show ID to get in the door. You don't have to have a card to sit and read, or sit and be on your computer, or sit and have a quiet conversation with somebody. And there is a huge need for these public spaces. Some things that I've seen people use library as public place for. I've seen people use meeting rooms to record podcast episodes. I've seen people use meeting rooms and study rooms for tutoring, coffee break groups, book groups. There's also some social safety net stuff that goes on. Often you'll need a place to do a supervised visitation for children whose parents are trying to earn custody back. Libraries are a good place for that. The Social Security Administration sometimes has third-party vendors who help manage money for people who are on Social Security disability but can't manage their own funds. And so they need a place to distribute the money to those folks, a public place. Libraries can be used for that. Oftentimes they're public cooling stations. During hot weather, they have HVAC-controlled environments, so they can be places where people who can't get out of the elements can come sit and avoid heat exhaustion and heat stroke. There's just so much that you can do if you have a physical location for people to just hang out. And also some really informal things, you know. If you're next door to a school, you're going to become a safe place where those kids come to hang out after school and do homework and chat and be kids. If you ever have a chance to be at a public library that's next to a middle school and that after school hour, it is a really interesting way to observe human behavior. Just a tip. So that's the third magical thing that libraries do, is simply exist as space. The fourth one is for you book people and you readers. There's this term that librarians call reader's advisory. It is a fancy term for connecting people with books based on their interests, based on what they're looking for. I will admit that there's some inconsistency as to how well librarians do this. Some of them are fantastic at it and amazing at it. And some of them, it's not their particular skill set. So you may have to shop around a little bit at your local library to find the person who's going to be the one that can connect you with the books that you like. But librarians tend to know a lot about what's sitting on their shelves, and they tend to know a lot about what's being recently published. And so that's a great brain to tap when you're looking for things to read, when you're looking for recommendations to make, when you fell in love with this book and you can't decide what to read next because nothing seems to be good enough. Oftentimes librarians have trainings in this. The profession also collates... That's Max. Max is saying hi to all. The profession also collates lists and awards and things like that of book recommendations. The people who are really, really good at this tend to be your youth services librarians, because part of their job really is selling books and literature to young people. So if you are somebody who likes YA and middle grade books, or if you have a child or adult in your life who does, pick those brains of your youth services librarians, folks. You have no idea what's out there. I was in a writers group on Facebook this week, and somebody was talking about kind of what are the rules around what you can and can't put in young adult books and all of that. And of course, the one recommendation that everybody was giving this person is you got to read more YA books. She said, well, how do I find the best ones? I said, you know what? The youth services librarians have created a list they call BBYA, which is the best books for young adults. And it is amazing. So Reader's Advisory is a great service. The fifth one, I'm actually going to put a pin in. Because Max is telling me that we're done, and I want to talk about it in the context of the summer reading conversation that we're going to have, because I want to talk about libraries as programming spaces and why that is important and how that benefits the literary community. But those are 5 services, magic services, that your library does. And what I love is all 5 of them are really based on traditional old school library services, sometimes with a modern twist. So digital books, Interlibrary Loan, library as public space, Reader's Advisory, and programming. And I will tell you, as somebody who staffed my fair share of reference desks, people will tell you references going out of style. You'll get a lot of argument about that, but this is what I'll say. Actual reference questions lower down on the list these days of the kinds of things that I would get coming at my desk. Most of the questions that I would get fall into one of three categories. Technology questions, computer questions, space questions. Can I use this meeting room? Can I sit here? Can I have people get together? Can I book this space? Or reader's advisory questions. So it is true that this is the core of the service that we're doing. And as maybe that reference core is fading, we might be needed to beef up some of those other areas. So thank you for staying tuned for Magical Missing episode 121. Tune in sometime around the upcoming holiday and we will talk all things summer reading, adults and children alike. Y'all take care. Go find yourselves a good story.